The battle for our future. Fossil fuels versus renewable energy. Who will win? You probably might have heard that renewable energy is evolving rapidly, while fossil fuels are headed towards the way of the dinosaur. But you might be thinking, what does all this talk actually mean? Well, to find out all about it, stick around with us. It's a well-known fact that renewable energy sources are expanding. In terms of solar energy, it's not surprising because if 1 hour of sunlight hits the Earth, it provides considerably more energy than humanity uses in 1 year. And the sun will always shine. But it's an intriguing and little-known fact that natural gas is growing much faster than renewable energy sources. Why? Because in popular opinion, fossil fuels are bad and renewable energy is good. But in reality, it's much more complicated than that. The climate crisis is centered on energy, and energy is essential to finding a solution. Burning fossil fuels to produce electricity and heat produces a significant portion of greenhouse gases that cover the planet and trap solar heat. Fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas account for more than 75% of all greenhouse gas emissions and around 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions, making them by far the biggest cause of climate change in the world. The science is very clear. Emissions must be cut in half by 2030 and reach zero by 2050 in order to prevent the worst effects of climate change. To do this, we must stop relying on fossil fuels and start putting money into reliable, clean, accessible, and affordable alternative energy sources. Renewable energy sources are regenerated by nature and release little to no greenhouse gases or pollutants into the atmosphere. They are abundantly available all around us and supplied by the sun, water, wind, waste, and heat from the earth. More than 80% of the energy produced worldwide is still derived from fossil fuels, although cleaner energy sources are gaining popularity. Currently, renewable energy sources account for about 29% of all electricity. Simply put, green energy comes from natural sources and is sustainably sourced, meaning there will be less negative impacts on the Earth and won't run out. Fossil fuels can take millions of years to replenish and cause significant damage to our environment. Renewable energy can be solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, or biomass. On the other hand, fossil fuels can be natural gas, coal, and oil. Fossil fuels also emit CO2 when burned, contributing to greenhouse gases and climate change. This is where lines can be blurred between energy sources. Burning of natural materials, such as wood for biomass generation, can emit more CO2 than fossil fuels. So while biomass is considered a renewable energy source, the process isn't always green. Are renewable resources more costly than fossil fuels? Even though renewable resources are originally very expensive to install, at the same time they are generally cheap to use. For the life of the panel or turbine, sources like solar and wind can make energy quote-unquote for free. Because fossil fuels must be located, extracted, and transported to power plants before they can be used, their costs are constant. After construction, many solar energy projects may provide electricity for less than half the price of fossil fuels, and as solar energy becomes more widespread, this price is expected to decrease. Cost of renewable energy versus fossil fuels. According to the cost of energy globally, the average price of coal has been around 6 cents per kilowatt hour. The average price of steam from fossil fuels has been around 5 cents per kilowatt hour. And the price of small-scale natural gas has fallen as low as 3 cents per kilowatt hour. The cost of renewable energy wasn't anywhere near this low prior to the last 10 years. This is why it was unexpected when in 2016, a sizable commercial solar farm delivered photovoltaic energy at a particularly low price of 2 9/10 cents per kilowatt hour. This made the cost differential between fossil fuels and renewable energy equal, eliminating the justification for the continued widespread usage of fossil fuels. About 6 billion people, or 80% of the world's population, reside in countries that are net importers of fossil fuels. Because of this dependence, they are more susceptible to geopolitical shocks and crises. In contrast, renewable energy sources are accessible worldwide, and have not yet reached their full potential. By 2050, 90% of the world's electricity can and ought to come from renewable sources. With the help of renewable energy sources, nations may diversify their economies, shield themselves from the erratic price fluctuations of fossil fuels, and promote inclusive economic growth, job creation, and the reduction of poverty. The Earth's temperature has risen dramatically since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, rising ocean water levels in its wake. Even if you don't believe in climate change, you can still see the haze created by the burning of fossil fuels all around you, especially in bigger places like Houston. The use of fossil fuels damages lung health by heating the earth and creating unfavorable byproducts like air pollution. On the other hand, renewable energy often produces less CO2 than fossil fuels. In truth, renewable energy sources like solar and wind power don't release any CO2 except during installation and maintenance. You can breathe easier, keep cooler, and improve the quality of life for future generations using renewable energy. Today, the cheapest source of energy in the majority of the world is renewable energy. Technologies of renewable energy are becoming more affordable quickly. Between 2010 and 2020, the cost of electricity produced by solar energy decreased by 85%. Onshore and offshore wind energy costs declined by 56% and 48% respectively. Low and middle income countries, where the majority of increased demand for new electricity will come from, are among those who will find renewable energy more alluring as a result of falling prices. There is a strong possibility that a large portion of the new power supply during the upcoming years will come from low carbon sources due to dropping costs. By 2030, cheap electricity generated from renewable sources may account for 65% of the world's total electrical production. By 2050, it could decarbonize 90% of the electricity sector, drastically reducing carbon emissions and assisting in the fight against global warming. Now, even though solar and wind power costs are expected to stay higher in 2023 than pre-pandemic levels due to generally elevated commodity and freight prices, their competitiveness improves due to much sharper gas and coal prices. Around 3 times as many jobs are produced every dollar invested in renewable energy than there are in the fossil fuel sector. According to the IEA, the transition to net zero emissions will increase the number of jobs in the energy sector overall. While there may be a loss of about 5 million jobs in the production of fossil fuels by 2030, there will likely be a gain of 14 million jobs in clean energy, for a net gain of 9 million jobs. An additional 16 million jobs would be needed in the energy sector, for example, to fill new positions in the production of electric vehicles, incredibly energy-efficient appliances, and cutting-edge technologies like hydrogen. And by 2030, more than 30 million jobs could be generated in the fields of clean energy, efficiency, and low-emissions technologies. And to make sure that no one is left behind, it will be crucial to ensure a just transition that put people's needs and rights at its core. In 2020, the fossil fuel industry received $5.9 trillion in subsidies, including direct payments, tax benefits, and compensation for unpriced health and environmental costs. To gain net zero emissions by the year 2050, it will take over $4 trillion in annual investments in renewable energy up until 2030, including investments in infrastructure and technologies. Many nations with limited resources may find the initial cost intimidating, and many will require financial and technical support to make the transition. But spending money on renewable energy will pay off. By 2030, only reducing pollution and climate impacts will generate annual savings of up to $4.2 trillion. Also, by diversifying the options for power supply, efficient, dependable, renewable technologies can make a system less vulnerable to market shocks and enhance resilience and energy security. So, is renewable energy better than fossil fuel? Well, in terms of better for the planet, most definitely. When compared to fossil fuels, renewable energy sources are much cleaner, and in some cases, like solar and wind power, they are completely clean energy sources. Fossil fuel combustion releases massive amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere, which is the primary contributor to global warming and frequently results in irreparable harm to the environment, wildlife, and people. Additionally, because fossil fuels are steadily being consumed, it's predicted that they will run out in about 200 years. On the other hand, renewable energy is derived from unrestricted natural sources like the sun, wind, and water. and may all be utilized in a way that is virtually entirely harmless to the environment. The first step toward a more contented, sustainable planet is the use of renewable energy. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video and found it interesting, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to always be updated with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again in another video.